Welcome to my channel. Today's scary story is about the man in the mirror. One evening, not long after I moved into my new apartment, I was unpacking boxes in the living room while listening to music through my headphones. The walls are quite thin in this building, and I could hear the neighbors on either side of me. On one side was what sounded like a woman arguing with a man. I couldn't make out what they were saying, but it was clear that the man was trying to convince the woman of something. The voices were muffled and distorted, like under a thick blanket, so I didn't pay much attention and continued unpacking. On the other side, I could hear what sounded like a man humming a tune and playing a video game. At first, it was just the gentle plucking of a guitar and some quiet, unintelligible singing. Then the music abruptly stopped and the only sound was the man's humming. I tried to focus on my unpacking, but the humming was strangely discordant, and it set my teeth on edge. It wasn't unpleasant exactly, just kind of creepy. It was like fingernails on a chalkboard, but with a video game, it wasn't too bad. So I just tuned it out. A few minutes later, I heard a blood-curdling scream from the neighbor on the other side. I paused my music to listen. There was a shuffling sound like heavy footsteps in the next apartment. Then silence. Maybe it was just a big dog. I shrugged and went back to my unpacking. About 15 minutes later, I heard what sounded like the exact same scream, followed by heavy footsteps. I decided to investigate. I got up and walked next door and started knocking. No answer. I tried the doorknob. Locked. I could hear voices in the apartment, but no one was answering. Worried that maybe the man had hurt himself or something, I started to bang on the door, yelling for him to open up. Finally, the voices stopped, and I heard the sound of the bolt being pulled back. The door swung open, and a very attractive young woman was standing there. She was clearly startled to see me. Hi, I said awkwardly. I'm your neighbor. I just heard a noise, and I thought maybe you were okay. Oh, yeah, sorry, she said. Everything's fine. Just, don't call the cops, please. What? I was confused. Why would I call the cops? Are you sure everything's okay? She looked at me for a second, then quickly shook her head. Yeah, everything's fine. Sorry to get your hopes up, but I have to close the door now. She started to shut the door, but I stopped her with my foot. Wait, what was that noise? You have to let me see? She tried to push past me, but I blocked her way. Please let me see. The woman panicked and started screaming for help. Her voice echoed through the apartment. Help, please, someone help me. I continued to block the door, but finally she pushed past me and ran into the bedroom. I chased after her, but she disappeared into the room. I couldn't see her anywhere. Then I noticed the mirror on the wall behind her. I turned and stared at it. There was a woman standing in the mirror with her back to me. She was breathing heavily, her chest rising and falling. I took a step toward her, and she slowly turned around. Her face was pale, and her eyes were wide with terror. She opened her mouth to scream, but no sound came out. She tried to speak, but all that came out was a whisper. I took another step towards her, and she stepped back, her eyes pleading with me to stop. I reached out to touch her, but when my fingers made contact with the mirror, they went right through. It was then I realized I was looking at a reflection, but the room behind her wasn't my neighbor's apartment. It was mine. My heart raced as I watched the woman in the mirror frantically search for an exit. She ran to the door and threw it open, but instead of finding the hallway, she stepped out onto my balcony. I could see the fear on her face as she looked down at the ground 2 stories below. She screamed and woke up. Then I remembered the music. I rushed to the window and looked out into the night. The woman was gone. As the sun rose the next morning, I called the police to report her missing. They asked me if we'd had any arguments, or if I knew anyone who might have wanted to hurt her. I told them no. And while they were taking my statement, I couldn't help but notice the lead detective was humming the same tune I'd heard the night before. When he left to continue his investigation, I went to the mirror and looked at myself. I was wearing the same clothes I had on the day before, but my hair was longer and there was a small cut on my finger. I touched it and winced. I hadn't noticed it before, but now it wouldn't stop bleeding. I looked back at the mirror and stared at my reflection. The man in the mirror smiled at me. He was handsome in a dark, dangerous way. His eyes were hypnotic and mesmerizing. I wanted to reach out and touch him, but my hand passed through his chest like he wasn't really there. Then he opened his mouth and spoke in a voice that was smooth like velvet. Should never have come here. Now you're trapped forever. With that, he vanished. I screamed and fell to my knees. I don't know how long I stayed there, but eventually the pain in my chest went away, and I felt a strange sense of calm come over me. I looked back at the mirror and saw my reflection smiling back at me. I reached out and touched it. The glass was cold. I smiled back, feeling a sense of peace settle over me. I finally understood. I wasn't trapped. This was my new home now. It was the lucky one. The woman in the mirror had been trapped in there for a long time, and now it was my turn to be free. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please subscribe and leave a like and a comment for part 2. See you soon.